This is DJ Slope from Slope's Game Room, and you're watching RetroUnlim.
Hi, I'm Kim Justice, and you're watching RetroUnlim.
Hello, I'm Nostalgia Nerd, and you are watching RetroUnlim.
Hello, I'm Stuart Ashen of the YouTube channel Ashens, and you are watching RetroUnlim. Keep watching it. Don't turn it off. Keep watching it. Keep watching it. Bye.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
2, 1, 0.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Play Expo in Blackpool. I'm Dan Wood.
I'm Ravi Abbott.
And we host the UK's biggest weekly retro gaming podcast, The Retro Hour. Now, the way our show works is we cover a really wide range of systems, really dating from like the ZX81 up to the PlayStation 2. And our show's in two halves. We cover retro gaming news, of which there is quite a lot. And then, in the second half of our show, we welcome on some of our favourite industry guests. Now, obviously today, magazines are not really what they were, teletext is long gone. Really, YouTube is where we find out a lot of retro gaming news and to kind of reminisce and discover those classic games that we may have missed. And today, it's our pleasure to welcome some of our favourite British YouTubers. Will you please give them a very warm welcome? Q&A at the end, but I thought, let's go from you, Kim. Just introduce yourself and maybe tell us a bit about your channel and what we may know you for.
Yeah, sure, okay. My name is Kim Justice. I've been doing YouTube for about 5 years now. I do documentaries about various subjects that interest me, anything from like Spectrum to Mega Drive, Amiga. I do things about industry figures and companies, things like Ocean Software, Peter Molyneux, Robert Maxwell. I just generally try to cover lots of different shades of prat, basically, a lot of the time. Trying to moderate my language. But yes, I just tend to do stuff on, I do stuff on like wrestling as well. I kind of like do sort of story-ish documentaries, kind of try and build up characters a lot. And yeah, that's me pretty much, kind of faking a living at it since 2012. It's kind of cool.
Hello, I'm Stuart Ashen from the channel Ashens, which I've been doing for 12 years. That's not a period of time I like to think about. Where I look at low quality items and take the mickey out of them. And when available, I do some retro gaming stuff because I'm mildly obsessed with it. I've written 2 books on the subject. Terrible Old Games You've Probably Never Heard Of and Attack of the Flickering Skeletons. Because I like short, concise titles.
Hello, I'm Peter Lee. I run the channel Nostalgia Nerd, which I've been doing for, 2 years, maybe 3 years now. My early videos were absolutely terrible. My current ones are questionable. Basically, I cover retro gaming, documentaries on old hardware and computing and software, and just generally talk about that. Quite a lot of nonsense. That's what I do.
Hey everybody, I'm Daniel Ibbotson, aka DJ Slope from Slope's Game Room. I'm probably most known for the Complete History series, where I try and look into the complete history on particular gaming franchises. My most popular one is Streets of Rage, but with me being a massive Sega fanboy, I do try and go a little bit old school as well to my first love, which was the Amstrad CPC 464 before consoles took over my life. And other than that, I do a few other things, a few quirky videos like the random histories, where I try and find really obscure history pieces that hopefully no one else has covered, or not covered to the level that I would like it to be covered. And most recently, I've been winding up everyone on Kickstarter by doing my Kick Scammer series, and getting some very DMCAs against me and everything else from all those people out there that like to scam people on Kickstarter. I like to shine a light on those guys.
So we always like to ask a question. What was your earliest kind of memory of computing or gaming experience? And just go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'll start. My first computing experience was when I was really quite young. It was about 1990. My dad used to work for Amstrad, like with Alan Sugar and all that lot, and ended up getting me Spectrum Plus 2. So not the old dead flesh rubber keys, like the actual one with the proper keyboard and the data loader that was decently made. So that was kind of where I started. I started on, like, I don't know, Postman Pat and those really terrible alternative software game. Stuff like Codemasters like Dizzy, Chucky Egg. You guys. 3D Death Chase, which is one of my favourite games of all time, and yeah, just kind of ballooned from there, kind of went from there to Mega Drive, Amiga, PS1. That's kind of my era, that was kind of all through growing up. So yeah, it was really bad alternative software games, was kind of my first memory.
Well, my sister, who was older than me, tells me that I used to hang off the Pac-Man machines in pubs when I was very young, looking at the screen trying to work out what was going on. I never did. My first computer was a VIC-20, a couple of VIC-20 given to me by my uncle, which I had for about 6 months, and found the games difficult. If you've ever played a VIC-20 game, you'll probably know why. Then for Christmas that year, I got a grey ZX Spectrum Plus 2, which was the real doorway into sitting in my bedroom and giving myself a hunched back for the rest of my life. I think of great games from that period. Well, I started off with the games that it came with free, like
oh God,
Punchy and Disco Dan. And,
Bullseye.
Yeah, all good stuff. And then there were things like Renegade, 3D Death Chase, Fancy World Dizzy. If anybody disagrees, that's one of the greatest games ever. I will fight you. Good. Have you got a towel? Where did we go from that? So then I got an Atari ST, had that for a long time till it kind of died, and got an Amiga, and then it all turned into PCs and everything went beige. My first ever proper console, when it was actually, you know, a thing on the market, was a Sega Saturn, of all things. Because I always backed the winner. So I had that for about 3 months, and then had to get a PlayStation as well, because I still wanted to play some games. Yeah, that's it, really.
So my first computer was a ZX Spectrum, which I got probably 1985 or 1986. I think the first game was Jetpack. I think I was probably more enthralled by the loading screen than the game itself, just because of the flashing colours on screen, and I was very young. But the main memory isn't actually a game, it's probably the BBC Micro and the Turtle software which you used to get with it. So you used to get a program called Logo, which you could program a turtle on the floor and draw a massive picture in the middle of a sports hall in the infant school, and I was like, what the hell is this? It blew my mind when I was like 4 years old, and that's just stuck with me ever since, really.
So I was a huge mummy's boy as a kid, so whatever my mum got, that was the computer or the console that I got into, and no matter what my friends had, whether it be a Master System showing me Alex Kidd or all of these other home consoles, nothing compared to the first game I ever had, which was Bridget for the Amstrad CPC, which isn't a good game in the slightest. But
oh my God, are you all right? Do you need therapy?
I'm strangely obsessed with it.
Man, it's so bad.
It's so bad, and it's impossible to complete because there's no way you'd ever be able to push all the buttons at the same. Yeah, you can't do well in it. But I was a huge mummy's boy, and no, Alex Kidd, that's crap compared to Bridget. So I've done what I told her basically until the day she bought me a Mega Drive. But originally it was the Amstrad CPC, and I was just obsessed with anything that looked like it could be a mascot that could rival those Mario characters and stuff that I see. So I was obsessed with the Gremlin characters, Thing on a Spring, Bounder, Dizzy literally took over my life. I drew pictures of Dizzy all over my wall, and then one Christmas put Christmas hats on every single one of them.
That luckily was easy to draw.
Yeah, pretty easy, yeah. So yeah, from there I went over to the obviously the Mega Drive, and then by Dizzy it was all about Sonic until I got Fantastic Dizzy for the Mega Drive. From there I just carried on being Sega until around the PlayStation era, and that was it really. Now I'll try and get them all.
Was it mainly gaming that you guys were into then? Because I know, Stuart, people may not know this, you've actually got a couple of public domain releases on the Amiga back in the day.
Thanks for bringing that up.
What were they?
My God, so there were 3 technically. Oh, no, I lie. Technically 2. The first was something called Apathy, which was just a weird front end for the Amiga Amos programming language speech synthesizer, mainly to amuse my friend Raymond. So that was exactly what the world needed at that time, an in-joke released to public domain libraries. Then there was Gribble, the Revenjo program, where there was just like a little man in a green jumper and you could kill him in different ways by selecting it from a menu. And there were some quite interesting sample sound effects I nicked off Monty Python. It wasn't a good program. And the only game I actually wrote was never released, excuse me, called Killjoy, where you little rotoscoped versions of myself, a bit like something out of Virtua Cop, but 2D. And quite visually impressive, the Amiga at the time, well, animation-wise, not that you can see it still shot there. And you just shot them and they fell over. And I finished it the day before the Dunblane massacre. So that was never released for obvious reasons. But it was crap anyway, so fair enough.
Well, let's talk about gaming television. Obviously, that was huge in the early 90s. And I know Peter and Kim, you often cover it on your channels. What was your favourite gaming television show, Kim? What memories have you got?
My favourite of like the TV shows was definitely Games Master. Just had to be, you know, all these sort of... just all the Neil and Knuckle humour. I mean, they kind of came off as kind of dicks a lot of the time, as we said, like Dominic Diamond and Dave Perry, like always just clearly hating each other. But then you had Patrick Moore as the Games Master, even though he knew absolutely nothing about the games, and it was kind of clear of that. He still was like kind of a good sport about it. And yeah, it's just had a really interesting history. But other than Games Master, one of my favourite shows, which not technically TV, but was kind of on the early days of video on the internet, was Consolvania, which is still going today. Rab and Ryan from Glasgow, Scotland. Yeah, just kind of doing this stuff, and that was a big influence on like the way that I do my gaming reviews these days, because they really kind of got into detail about the game and like actually why it was good, which is kind of what I wanted to do with my channel instead of saying that everything's crap all the time.
Well, now, Peter, you actually do commentary over old episodes of Bad Influence.
Bad Influence! Yeah.
Tell us about Bad Influence then. What do you remember about that?
Bad Influence is possibly the greatest programme of all time, I would say. Aside from the fact that Andy Craig, who presented it, knew nothing about computers or games consoles, it was actually, it used to be on at 4:45 on ITV on a Thursday, and after school it was just the best thing to watch. It was just like, back then obviously we didn't have the internet, so you'd have to get your reviews from magazines which were a month out of date at least. So Bad Influence provided reviews on like the latest games and machines, and just it was everything I needed in a program and more. And it still is today. I mean, like 25 years later, I still watch it and I think, oh my God, that's amazing! Look at that 8-bit machine. And, you know, forgetting we've advanced to where we are now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can't really add much to that. That's the one I watched the most as well. Also, the Sky shows after school with Big Boy Barry. Was it Game Zone?
Games World.
Games World, sorry. Yeah, so I used to watch that as well. So, yeah, Bad Influence primarily.
Yeah, it was mostly Games Master for me, I think, because I was a bit older, but I still watch Bad Influence as well, because it was just a novelty to see people actually talking about video games as if it was a thing and not something you should hide in the room and be shot if you accidentally played one, you know. First actual, you know, mainstream media realising it existed, I suppose. Now, remind me, Peter, did Bad Influence have like a data blast thing at the end where you had to record it?
It did, yeah. If you were lucky enough to own a video recorder which didn't create a freeze frame like this, then you could catch some information at the end.
Well, you've confirmed my memory. We didn't have one of those VHS players, and I would record it and then try and read it and couldn't. And that still annoys me to this day.
Yeah. And you can't forget about Namrud as well.
Oh, Namrud. What's his name? Andy Weir. Andy Weir, yes.
Yeah. Namrud's Doorman Backwards.
Yeah. Which blew my mind.
Yes, it still does me today.
He lives in Australia now, doesn't he? Is he? That's a completely pointless fact for you.
Last I saw him, he was in Emmerdale, wasn't he?
Yes, and in Mr. Biffo's found footage.
Was he?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Must have missed that.
Yeah? Well, that's one for you to go and look at afterwards. Why don't we all do the same? That's a plug.
So, do you guys think that gaming TV needs to be back on TV? Would there be a kind of demand for gaming?
Definitely needs to come back. I think there's such an audience for it now. If you brought back Games Master, and you know, we've got Go 8-Bit, haven't we, on Dave by Dara Breen, which is okay, but it's not quite the same as Games Master. Hasn't quite got the same cool edge. If you brought back Games Master with Dominic Diamond, probably wouldn't do it, but someone else. And had that.
With the competitions and the
competitions, yeah, I think it'd be amazing. You could do like a retro section, you could do the new systems. I think the audience is even bigger now for it. It boggles my mind why they don't do it, to be honest.
I don't think they need it. I don't think they need it. You've got YouTube
Shut
now.
up.
You've got YouTube now. Like YouTube is so niche for each channel. You can, go and find out a channel dedicated to AM strategy. You can go find, you can find exactly what you want.
Yeah, but like if a program about knitting on terrestrial TV will get more views than most YouTube programs, won't it? So I mean, if you put a gaming show out there.
Well, I'm going to have to go with Daniel on this one because TV audience is really shrinking. And
I hate you all.
Who are playing games, not generally watching that much television. Occasionally I'll talk to the BBC when they have, they want to speak to a YouTuber because I'm the only one over the age of 3. And so I go in and they're so sort of entrenched in the old linear programming stuff, they don't realise that the average age of a television viewer is now over 50. I mean, the kids are not watching it. And we always give the Peppa Pig example, like, right, a kid wants to watch Peppa Pig, they'll get their tablet their dad got from Maplin for 50 quid. I mean, it's a bit shonky, but it plays Peppa Pig. They get it up, play Peppa Pig, tea's ready, okay, pause that, off we go. Try explaining to them that, right, you can only watch Peppa Pig at 4:30 PM on a Thursday, and if you miss it, that's the end of it. And if they come and you forgot to watch your tea, then you can't record it, you can't ever see it again. What? There's just no need for that anymore for the newer generations. And plus, with the turnaround time of TV shows, you would be so behind it. What I think could work is a television show around games. So it'd be like features and maybe retro stuff and something that isn't trying to provide news because it would always be behind it. Maybe there'd be something for that. But if anybody's ever dealt with a television company in video games, you will know they hate them. They always see it as a competitor to television.
Well, it is, isn't it?
But they did it with films.
It is, but it's always been historically, it's always just been a great rivalry between, because essentially a gaming TV programme is advertising something that's going to take away people from watching television. So it's
Precisely.
kind of polar opposites in a way. So I don't think, as much as, it'd be nice to see gaming TV back, because, there is a certain professionalism about a TV programme, some of them anyway. And that, you've got a crew and, you've got proper plush reviews and big sets and all that, like Games Master back in the day on the oil rig and all that. But will it happen? I don't see it. I just don't see, like...
You'll get plenty of attempts. You'll get plenty of attempts and they just won't do it as well as, what we want to see on telly, this retro game, Pac-Man and Space Invaders, and it will never really go to anywhere above the real obvious. I don't think.
Yeah, mass market stuff. One of the problems is, if you look at it over the years, there have been so few attempts at gaming shows, considering how gaming has grown. I mean, Games Master was like the biggest programme on Channel 4 at the time.
It was, yeah.
And yet, now people won't watch television programmes about games. No, it's because exactly as Kim says, it was seen as a rival.
And the only reason why it had the budget it had was Games Master actually, it kind of ended up in the sport part of Channel 4, which is why there was so many sportsman guests. Like they always had people like Vinnie Jones and Jimmy White and various other sportsmen, just because it ended up in the sports programme so that they'd get a bigger budget. Kind of how Young Ones for the BBC was in music.
So that's why they always had bands.
Yep, that is why.
Well, talking of television that we watched as kids, Stuart, you actually brought back a classic show a couple of years ago on YouTube. Tell us about the remake of Nightmare.
Well, you can't thank me for it directly because I didn't pay for it. I really didn't pay for it. I cannot stress that enough. Yeah, that was an odd one. It was old YouTube wanted to do something for Geek Week, and somebody, which was like a week of geeky stuff they did. Really glad I explained that in case you couldn't work out what Geek Week was.
It's not geeky enough, YouTube, isn't it?
Yeah, cool, yeah. Somebody came up with the idea of bringing back Nightmare, and all the original team, Tim Child, etc., were all on board for it, and we literally filmed it in Norwich, in the old studio, which is now like an independent place, in front of a blue screen, not a green screen, really old stuff. I got to put the bucket on my head. You walk into walls a lot wearing that bucket. They don't edit that in, but every 5 seconds it's...
So you watch it as a kid, you thought it was probably filmed in like a field or something, but...
Yeah, no, it's just a tiny little blue area.
But you're like in a cupboard.
Yes, and poked me with a stick and said, I'm a goblin. The more I think about it, that's not that far from the truth, actually.
But obviously you got to meet like Traeger, that'd have been starstruck.
Oh, he lives locally, it was Hugo Myers, what a lovely bloke. And I was quite worried when I first saw him, because he'd gone so grey and old. Then I realised, no, that's makeup. They'd literally done him up to look older and not warned us beforehand. And then he came back from having it moved, bloody hell. He's gone back in time 20 years.
It's always exactly the same, doesn't it?
He does, he absolutely does, yeah.
Wow.
But that was an interesting one from a YouTube perspective as well, because YouTube never get particularly interested in anything from a sort of admin point of view, but as soon as they heard they were bringing back a TV show, they were so excited. So never believe it when YouTube say they're the future. They are obsessed with becoming television.
You're backing up my idea about a TV game show. You said YouTube's good, now bring TV back.
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying that's what YouTube want to become, television, and take over the audience.
Oh yeah, I mean they're desperate for legitimacy, which is why you've got the whole YouTube Red thing, and they always try to make big stars out of the biggest YouTubers. Unfortunately, what then ends up happening is they end up going to Japan and just filming some dead bodies.
It's natural progression.
Yeah, and so it's like, back to the drawing board. Who's next? I mean, they'll get to me eventually, I'm sure, but always open.
Well, about your YouTube videos, you and Slopes have amazingly researched videos, and I'd like to know how you go through your process of research and kind of make sure your information's all accurate.
There's no one answer. I mean, I've got a Google Drive folder full of maybe 50 scripts that I still haven't finished. Some may never see the light of day. And one of those scripts isn't a script, it's just an idea page of pages and pages and pages of articles I've read, and maybe an article out of a retro gamer magazine or an actual gaming magazine from back in the day. And every so often, for instance, now I don't have this weekend's video ready yet. And I sort of make it up as I go along. Okay, now this is really interesting. Now I want to research this guy. What else has he done? And then I'll research. Okay, can I find anything else out about? So the next one will probably be Road Rash: The Complete History, and I'll have to go and find some information out about that, or some information. I don't know how I do it, if I'm honest. I just make it up as I go along. And if an article falls in my lap, that's really cool. So that's it.
So yeah, I try to kind of get as close to like the source as I can. I wouldn't be able to exist without like the Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine, archive.org, if anyone's ever heard. It's like a big resource full of like old websites, magazine scans, and like interviews potentially with like people from actually back in the day, because obviously like people are still around and still talk about the stuff that they did 20 years ago, but it's then different to compare those accounts from the present with what they were saying in the past, when it was perhaps a bit more like slick and more PR. And just interviews as well. I try to, if I can get in touch with anyone as well from back in the day, and do like my own like sort of primary research, along with all like looking at the magazines, looking at dusty old websites full of like Amiga Action or whatever, or Sinclair User. Then that's what I'll do, and just try and compile like the best, the most like interesting stories I can into a video.
Do you ever find yourself getting lost? Because I'll look back through your Sinclair, trying to research something, and then the next minute I've read the entire magazine, I'm on to the next one, and then I'm like lost down a black hole for like days. Yeah. And then I'm like, I've got a video to make today, and then I have to push something out rapidly.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, some sites are kind of handy, especially like the magazine sites. World of Spectrum, back when it was still really good. Well, I mean, it still kind of has. It had like, whenever you like researched a game, it'd have all the instances that a game that actually appeared in the magazine, whether it's in advert or in print review. That's kind of one of these things. When I did Cassette 50, I don't know if anyone's heard of that, the greatest compilation of all time. I was able to kind of figure out like just how many times Cassette 50 was advertised in the Spectrum magazine, because it was all on the World of Spectrum page, and I think the number was like 300 or something like that. I mean, never actually reviewed in a magazine because it was so just the most basic of basic games, but mentioned more than literally any other computer game in the 1980s, I think, in magazines. Just silly things like that, and then I can compare like I don't know, Underworld was mentioned like 100 times, Jetpack 200, and then Cassette 50 like 369 or whatever, compared to like all the classics just so far ahead.
There are some great resources, aren't there? Like World of Spectrum. They are amazing and often don't get enough acknowledgement that they should.
Yeah.
Archive.org, you're right, is an amazing collection.
Hall of Light as well for Amiga Magazine rack.
Yeah.
So many of my videos just wouldn't exist without.
No,
absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine making a video without the internet. Going to a library, I'll get
Yeah,
Compton's
yeah,
Encyclopedia or something.
Yeah.
Just make it all up.
Talk to people.
Well, Peter, you and I were talking backstage then about the Atari Jaguar. And one thing that always appeals to me on YouTube is finding out about obscure systems that you may not know that much about, or failed consoles. And I know you had a CDI at one point, Stuart. I mean,
I still do have a handheld one, so I can play it on the train. It was only sold to shops as like demonstration unit. I don't know, it's the CDI, it's all weird.
I was going to ask, have any of you got any favourite kind of underrated or maybe failed consoles?
I mean, for me, as we were talking earlier, it's the Atari Falcon, which is an amazing system and should have done so much better if Atari had had the money to push it. When it went up against the Amiga 1200, it is more powerful than that. And the Amiga, I know you're Amiga fan, boys, but the Falcon's an amazing system. And I was lucky enough to get sent one the other week, and I almost exploded with joy. I mean, I was like, whoa, what's in this package? But yeah, it's got to be the Falcon.
I can't wait to see that video.
Yeah, me either. I hope it works.
I think it's a shame that Jaguar never really got anything that actually pushed the hardware, particularly at the time. I mean, like Alien vs Predator was okay, wasn't it? And
That's hard to play.
yes.
It's on the floor.
Really slow hits.
Yeah, with the D-pad as well.
Even if they managed to get it technically right, the game design was a bit off, wasn't it? But I mean, things like Club Drive coming out versus Ridge Racer. I mean, God. Wasn't Club Drive famously actually laughed at by the journalists when they unveiled it? PR did. I was there. Oh my God, we have corroboration. There we are. Yeah. It would have been nice to have seen something that pushed it a bit instead of, Kasumi Ninja and Ultra Vortec and Billy the Potato Man, which I made up, but it's probably better than any of the games they actually released.
Yeah, I like the Jaguar. I suppose I'm a bit more like in that modern era as well. I love the 32X and the Mega CD even though the majority of the games on that Mega CD are awful, like FMV games. I'm weirdly really into them. I just love owning Crisscross Make My Video and stuff.
Yeah, that's
not what said in my book. That's not what said.
It's cool to own now, but I mean, it's something on the shelf. Oh, there it is. It gives me a chuckle, but yeah, it's or In Excess. Make My Video. They did that.
CNC Music Factory.
Yeah. I love that. I still remember seeing Road Avenger and being absolutely blown away. Like, graphics will never look better than this.
Road Avenger's an amazing game.
It is.
It's like, it's driving around and blowing up everything as you go. And what's not to love about it?
There needs to be an HD remake of that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we mentioned some terrible games there as well as some good ones. What is the appeal with terrible games, mainly for Stuart?
It's that kind of thing when, I was driving past a car crash and I couldn't help but stare. Do you know what I mean? It's when something goes completely horribly wrong, there's something interesting to it. Especially to the level where you just could not enjoy playing the game. How did this get released? The answer is nobody cared. Just put it on the tape, obviously. But there is that kind of bizarre fascination with the dive to the bottom. Because if you ask online, what's the worst game ever? Everybody will say, E.T. for the Atari 2600, which is pretty bad. Superman for the N64, blah, blah, blah. But, there's worse. If you scratch the surface, there's really worse. People paid money for Squidge.
Squidge, yes. Which, unless you hack into the code, you can't play. You literally can't move it because the person who programmed it, all the code was in uppercase, but he put like the directions in lowercase. So for that reason, you just can't play it at all. You can't move it unless you hack into the game.
It was just an edutainment program way ahead of its time. Programming for kids.
Figure it out.
And it's so badly designed that when you do hack in and turn off caps lock or whatever, I still couldn't figure out that anything worked. It was actually Kim who discovered that you could shoot enemies, it just gives you 0 visual feedback.
Yeah, there's no feedback.
And no audio feedback. So how are you supposed to know that works? Do you wait for a letter through the post from the programmer?
That's a life lesson.
Well, Stuart, has naff stuff always appealed to you? Because I know a lot of your videos are about, like, you know, Poundland pickups and that kind of thing.
Oh yes. I don't know why. You know, my favourite games, I was thinking recently, there's always something slightly shonky about them, for instance. I don't know why that is. There's something about imperfection which, I don't know, endears me to an extent. But when something's really, really bad, that's when it sort of ticks that thing in your mind that just says, how has this happened? Why has this happened? Why am I alive? Or maybe that's just me, I don't know.
I think the thing is with, I mean, I usually do games that I like, but sometimes terrible games, especially when there's something just interesting about them as well. Like there's one game that I covered quite recently called Super Trolley, which is this budget Spectrum game, and it has kind of a checkered past because it was actually a kid designed it and got Jimmy Savile on Jim Will Fix It. Yeah. Yeah, script. To design and make it through Mastertronic. And it is, basically, it's a game where you are a shelf stacker in a supermarket. And it's even less interesting than that sounds. It's almost like, I mean, and I kind of played it and thinking like, games are supposed to be fun. They're supposed to, you know, take you into some fantasy world. This is mundanity in the extreme.
Who thought that was a good idea?
Jimmy Savile.
Well, Daniel, you kind of cover a lot of failed Kickstarters as well. Are there any particular ones that have stuck out in your mind?
Okay. So a few weeks ago, I did 6 times. I called it a really nasty title as well. Me and my wife, she helped me make it because it was so much stuff that we had to research on it. So it's the Kickstarter scum that ran away with your money 6 times. I called it. And I called him names all the way through and all this other stuff. And I wonder if he'll ever see it. And 5 hours after it went live, he became a patron of mine. And I was like, I wonder if he's, no, that's not him. And then it was Ken Whitman at kenwhitman.com. I'm like, whoa, this is the guy. And then I got a little bit nervous because all my Patreons were in a big Discord chat just completely dissing him. Like, oh, what an absolute, you know, all this sort of stuff. And I probably should get rid of him because he's going to start attacking my Patreons now. So I blocked him and I gave him his refund also because I don't really want him paying me if he's not giving any Kickstarters their rewards. And then he, no one knows this actually yet. I might be talking about this in a future video, but he sent a DMCA to Patreon to get my Patreon taken down. Not the video, but the Patreon taken down. So I got very nervous. And I started asking the Patreon to hang on. Is he trying to take down my Patreon or is he trying to take down the video? And he's like, oh, just the video. I went, well, he can't do that. That's on YouTube. And they went, oh, okay, well, I think all he wants to do then is take down the post. I mean, so he's going to all this effort for me to take down a post that says go and check out a video. I mean, my patrons know who I am. They'll just go and look at the video if they want to go look at it. So I had to remove it. I think it's not the last I've heard from him. I'm pretty sure it's not the last I've heard from him. He hates me.
Surprise, surprise, he's here today!
And a couple of weeks before that, I did the Kickstarter project that got destroyed by The Sun. And I don't mean The Sun newspaper. The way it worked was there was a girl making a board game about the solar system. And all was going fine, a couple of hiccups, but the board game community helped her out. Everything was nice and humble. And then one day she updated the update section on Kickstarter and said, the Sun's been talking to me. The Sun has been talking to me, and they're scared that I'm giving away too many secrets. And they had to try and stop making it. And it was so bizarre. And I made a video like this because I found that so interesting. And then I actually interviewed her at the end, and she's insanely, I want to say racist, but I don't think she actually is racist. I got called really nasty names. And then after it went live, she became a friend of mine, and she's sending me a copy of the game. For review, and I've obviously paid her for it. There's no way can I get a copy and the backers haven't. Yeah, I'm doing lots of these. I'm going to do an update video on all these crazy things that keep happening because there's loads more stories as well. It's pretty crazy.
I know on your channel you cover Sega a lot, and there is obviously a lot of love for Sega here on the panel.
Yes.
You guys ever think that Sega can come back, or is it too late? Can they come back and maybe harder?
They pushed out too much tripe in the years since, haven't they? I mean, Nintendo have played the game and they pushed out quality products, but Sega just went down quantity over quality, and I just don't think they've got the drive to do that.
Growing up as a Sega fanboy, like all my mates were Nintendo fanboys, and when we got a GameCube and I put in Sonic Heroes, and I saw the Sega logo come up, and then the Nintendo logo come up, I was just, I was like a proper punch in the gut, and all my friends are like, ooh, but that hurt. They could totally come back. I mean, I think they may be on the right path with Sonic Mania. They just need to get hold of their classic franchises that people do want to see, and make a proper brand new Streets of Rage, which I suppose technically happened with Streets of Rage remake before they were bastards and got it taken down. They just need to hit heavy with the indie scene, I think, and they would do really well, but I don't think they will, sadly.
No, I don't think they will. Things like Sonic Mania are a good thing, but that's down to like the fans. The guy made like Christian Whitehead's been a fan of Sonic and a great programmer, and it kind of came from the fan scene as opposed to internally from Sega. I think the trouble is I'm not even sure really just how many of those guys are there anymore. Like the guys who made like the Mega Drive and like the classic like System 16 teams and all that. How many of them were even there? I thought it was all like American Sammy.
There's nothing really left of Sega in that sense, certainly not hardware.
Sammy are doing bad as well at the moment, they're hitting big hits at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, talking of former greats as well, you're really into the Acorn and BBC computers, Peter, and you cover them a lot on your channel. Can you tell us about your kind of school experiences?
I do. I need to cover them more recently, but the BBC Micro was the machine I had at school. I remember it being wheeled in on a red trolley. I was like, what is this? Unveiled like with a cloak. People crowding around it. Look at the wonder! Just as I was talking about earlier with the turtle and the logo programming language, seeing that turtle draw a massive picture in the sports hall was crazy. And then the school got a Doomsday machine with the massive laser discs. And then I found myself wandering around, I can't remember what town it was, but Leicester or somewhere, which is a bit random, but...
Is it Ashby?
Maybe, yeah, something like that. But so in the middle of school, I was like walking around Ashby. I was like, this is interesting. And it was like an early first-person perspective game, a bit like an early Google Maps, really, way ahead of its time. So I think Acorn and BBC got so much right, and they were so far ahead of their time.
I guess today the ARM processor's in every mobile phone, and that came out of the Acorn architecture.
It did, absolutely.
Sophie Wilson.
Yeah, Sophie Wilson. Yeah, I did, and Steve Ferber. They did so much to get to that position. It's a shame that they got caught up in the 1984 sort of crash, and Olivetti had to buy them out. Otherwise, they could have possibly gone in a different direction. We could have had BBCs everywhere instead of IBM's. Doubtful, but it's a
BBC phone.
Yeah.
Well, this is a question to all of you, really. How big is your console and computer collection then? Is it do you have a storage area for it, or is it kind of spilling out of every room in your house?
Absolutely huge.
I have seen Peter's office, and I can confirm he has everything that's ever existed, often two of them.
Yeah, it's a bit greedy, really. I should probably disperse that a little. But it's just nice to be surrounded by all these iconic machines. It's kind of like it's like a quest. Like all these machines I wanted when I was younger, I can now get. And I just sit, in a circle around them and talk to them. It's lovely.
I think that is a big part of the appeal, though, isn't it? The fact that, you look at these dream machines that were thousands of pounds when you were a kid, and they seem so far out of reach. And if you can get them off eBay for like 300 quid today.
Even though they've got a fraction of the power of your desktop, you're like, this is so much nicer than my PC. It'd be so much more. You still think that in your mind. Well, I do at least.
It's the aesthetic, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the aesthetic. Yeah.
What's your collection like, Kim? Have you got lots?
My collection's actually probably significantly smaller than everyone else's. I don't really have anything specific that I collect just because I don't really have space or anything like that. Plus I kind of got rid of all my stuff like a few years ago in a fit of pique. But I'm slowly building it back up, trying to get all the stuff that I had from my childhood back, and so it's always nice to kind of find something good for a decent price. Anyway.
Do you guys have any kind of consoles or machines on your hit list that you really want to get and you haven't been able to get your hands on?
I think I've got the Falcon and the Mega PC, which were my two main machines I lusted after. So, I'm just living the life, really.
I want to start collecting for the PC Engine. PC Engine, I want to get myself a Jaguar as well, which I know they're not that hard to get, they're not like completely out of reach, but like I say, I haven't actually got the biggest gaming collection. I've got a moderate size, it's pretty good, but I sold my entire Mega Drive collection because I thought it would be a really good idea when the Dreamcast came out if I sold every single game I owned for £1 a pop to buy a third and fourth Dreamcast controller, which I never used, which was so painful. And then when I walk around out in the traders hall and I'm seeing Streets of Rage 3, 120 quid, I had that. Oh, I had the Punisher. Oh. And but someone got it for £1, and I actually bumped into that guy where I sold them all to at a boot fair selling some PlayStation 2 games, and I just looked at him like, you were the guy.
Was he wearing a golden suit?
It's
Massive gold grill.
Come and see DJ Sloop's collection.
Charging for entry.
And then I lost the Dreamcast controllers in a move and bought them again for £2.50 recently. So talk about. But no, I mean I'm trying to collect again, but I'm trying to collect quirky things. And annoyingly, until I take this YouTube thing full time, which I'm not doing yet, I will have. How Pete's got with his room. I'd love a game room to be able to put it all in, because when I do a complete history and I go out and buy, have I got Echo the Dolphin? I'll go buy Echo the Dolphin online. It won't much, like 10, 20 quid. And then I go upstairs, I've got it 3 times now. So I need, at the moment they're just in boxes, sadly.
Most of my collection is very old computers from sort of early 80s. Because when researching the Terrible Old Games books, I realised at some point somebody was going to say, well, I wrote that game and actually it works fine on the original hardware, it's you emulating it. Oh no, my friend. Allow me to point you towards my TI-994A, running your game on the original hardware through a CRT, and I think you'll find those graphics do flicker, darling. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm looking forward to being really smarmy when it does. Collection-wise, I'm still trying to complete my Sega Saturn game collection, which I will never get anywhere near, because once you've got half of them, the other half are all like £30, £40 each. So I might complete it if I live to be 10,000 years old.
Have you got the super rare ones for the Sega Saturn?
A few of them. I've got Panzer Dragoon Saga, which my agent just gave me one day. He went, I'll go and found this. What? Do you know what this is worth? Yes. Well, I'm having it anyway. But he also gave me a Jaguar, so the world balances out, doesn't it? I've got a Street Fighter collection, which I didn't think was that rare, but I saw it in the trader hall for like £150.
That surprised me. I had that as well.
What I'd really like is Deep Fear.
Oh, the last
Not the game, just in general. I think it'd be it's like, as Kim was about to say, the very last released Saturn game in the UK, and it's like a really bad Resident Evil.
Yeah, so Resi clone only in a submarine, innit? Or like an underwater space station, or underwater space station.
Killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Sea station.
Yeah. I would like that. I think just because it's the last one. Also, it's very rare and expensive. I'm trying to think what the most expensive game is. Mr. Bones, maybe?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, Panzer Dragoon.
Yeah. I think Panzer Dragoon is not as rare as you think, in that sense, or as pricey as you think. But the problem is it came in like a cardboard box that's easily damaged by, photons and background radiation, so very few of them are sort of complete and decent.
We did mention about writing books there. You've got 2 books out now.
Yes.
What was kind of the
Have you
process?
all bought it yet? Thank you. I was scared that wouldn't work for a second.
Did you ever imagine that you'd be a published author, and what was kind of the process of writing those books then?
Oh God. When I was young, I used to write a lot of stories and fiction. So I thought maybe I could do a fiction book one day. Then I realised it was a lot more fun to just play crap old games and laugh at them.
And you did write terrible old games as well.
Yes. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, there was a weird research thing, because I started doing it for a video series, and then it sort of expanded into this book, and I was surprised at the end of it by just how many there were when you really look into it, because I thought, could I get enough to fill a book? Now I could fill probably 5 books. I could do a book alone on the Amstrad CPC and the awful ports it got, you know. It was a much bigger field than I thought, much bigger.
Well, we're going to give you guys a chance to ask some questions now, but please just give a round of applause to our audience. Okay, so any questions, just raise your hand if you've got one. Ravi will run over with the mic.
Get my exercise.
Hi, oh,
Hello. Hello.
this is a question to the panel. We live in an era of hardware reboots, and there's a hell of a lot of Spectrum, ZX Spectrum ones. I'm just wondering if there's any retro, computer or console that you would like to see rebooted.
I'd like to see an N64 just because it's the Nintendo console that doesn't emulate that well, and it's really hard to connect them decently to a modern television. So hopefully they'll get onto that now that they've made 11 bajillion pounds on the SNES Mini.
The same for the Sega Saturn. That's where Sega could come back, because if Sega made a Sega Saturn, basically they would actually play games and then chuck, maybe 10 or 20 games in there, chuck your typical Sonic R, all that sort of stuff. But it actually could play games as well. Give an HDMI thing on the back that would outsell anything that, everyone would want one of those. This is what they could do to come back, but they won't. But yeah,
they'll get
Sega
ads
Saturn
games on it. They'll get a cardboard box with Saturn written on it.
Any other questions?
I think I'd like to see the Sound Cube 8 brought back, mainly because it's so bloody expensive. So to get like a cheaper version would be nice, I think.
Do actually, going back to the which console would you want, that is one thing I would like, the Sound Cube. Have you got one in the office that I can touch?
No, I prefer not to talk about that.
I apologise.
I think it would be good to see like an Amiga joystick that you plugged into the TV with all the games on, like they did that Commodore 64 thing a couple of years ago.
That'd be brilliant. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like a sort of Amiga that's just got a whole bunch of games, or you can put an SD card in, put them all easy. I mean, you can do all that with like the Retro Pi. If you've got like the technical know-how, but it'd be nice to see like a proper Amiga one. I think there was one a couple of years ago called the Amiga.
There is, yes. Yeah, I've been using it to image discs, which is a great way to get loads of dirt in a disk drive, because old discs.
Any more questions?
Yeah, one here.
Ken, do you think you'll do with Kimblets?
Will I do another Kimblets? I might do something where I end up doing that, because I mean, for anyone who didn't know, like the Kimblets was something that I did like every day. Like I had a review like in a month. I think it was like February 2 years ago. I did like a review every day for like 28 days. It was mental. I really shouldn't have done it. I might do something, not necessarily like the Kimblets, but like licensed games sort of videos that I did, because that's kind of one of my soft spots. I really like covering like old licensed games that no one remembers, that no one liked at the time, but there's always something quite interesting about that to me. So I might resurrect that in the future.
This is for the panel. What would you say the strangest story behind a retro game that you've come across is?
I mean, Squidge takes some beating, doesn't it?
It really does.
I mean, basically written by somebody under contract who had to deliver something, so he deliberately wrote something in a couple of days that he knew was so bad they wouldn't release it. They didn't even look at it, they just duplicated it and sent it out to the shops.
Yeah.
Hence
Quality
why it
control.
doesn't work.
I quite like Squeak. I'm not sure what home computer that was, but basically they accidentally sent the not finished version out. It was finished, but what basically the developer did was every time you completed a level, instead of saying hooray or some quirky little thing, he would say, "F your mother." That got into like all the usual papers, but I mean, we couldn't find anything. And when I'd done my Squeak Complete History, I said to him, "So, did this happen?" "Yes, it did." So it went out and they accidentally sent the wrong tape instead of sending the proper one where they changed it back. They sent their jokey little one that they made themselves where every time you complete a level, Squeak tells you to F your mother.
God.
I think it's Lotus Turbo Challenge, where if you isolate some of the audio tracks, you get some abusive lyrics thrown at you through the computer, which is quite, I quite like finding things like that stuffed into games where the programmer was clearly disgruntled. He's like, "Screw you, let's just put this in there," and he's satisfied with that. It's quite nice.
One of my favourite ones is the Bitmap brothers. Mark Montgomery tells this story about how back in the early days they were commissioned by Mastertronic, or they were going to be commissioned by Mastertronic to make a game about real tennis. It's like, you know, I don't know, it's like you run with the roof and that, it's like kind of squashy. And they researched it for like a month, like researched real tennis just to make this the best real tennis game ever. I don't think there's ever actually been a real tennis video game. And so they go to Mastertronic and they come, and the first thing that they say in the meeting is, "We've decided not to make a real tennis game. So all this like books of research that you can just throw those in the bin." And so kind of and then literally they went to the pub and on the back of a fag packet they designed Speedball, or the idea for Speedball. It's really like Speedball, like this crazy futuristic future sports game. Comes out like one of the oldest sports like played by the gentry basically. That's really strange kind of how these things work sometimes. And then they made no money from it because it was made by Microsoft, and then Robert Maxwell fell off a yacht.
Why has our company gone? Man fell off a yacht. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Actually, my favourite story of that is the Pickford Brothers Zub, which is an old, very good budget game. £3, little man jumps about, amusing character, nice physics, etc. Blah blah blah. It was originally called Zob, right up until the point of being sent to the duplicator, who pointed out that's a swear word in French. And if you look, they had the artist Steve Pickford had to change it absolutely at the last minute and get couriers to send new tapes. And if you actually look at the game's loading screen, the title screens, you can see where it clearly said Zob, and they've just had to use character blocks to take the top out of the O to make it a U. So look out for that the next time you happen to be playing a game called Zub.
We have got time for a couple more questions. Raise your hand.
This is for the panel. What do you think about the game Simpsons Hit 'Em Run?
I think it's a great game.
It's just like the first good Simpsons game, if I remember.
It's a really
Unless
good
you
game.
count the arcade game, I suppose. But...
Yeah, the arcade game.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. That was a cool game.
Yeah, was it the Grand Theft Auto?
Yeah.
I think it was the first one made for sort of home consoles that wasn't like a very pared down game of children wrestling. Things like Simpsons Wrestling was basically press a button to wrestle.
Oh, yeah. Or there was like Bart versus the Space Mutants.
Oh my god, what a mess
What was
that was.
the Dreamland one, where, you know what I'm about? He has to keep going, he has to do his homework while he's asleep.
That's right, Virtual Bot.
That's a really rare game, that is.
Yeah.
No, what was there was the Simpsons Crazy Taxi rip-off where there was a whole lawsuit as well. Road Rage?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
And there was a Krusty's Funhouse. I'd forgotten all these existed, yeah.
The Simpsons on the Xbox 360 is quite an alright game. It's like playable. It's not great, it's pretty good.
There's a movie film as well. A movie film?
Yeah,
one of those new movie films they're inventing. Based on the movie.
That's the one, yeah.
Also, Bart's House of Weirdness, which is another terrible old game that no one's ever heard of.
I have genuinely not heard of that. Which system? Do
PC.
my research for me now.
PC, like 1991. It's
I don't
awful.
have a PC.
You don't have a PC.
I don't have a PC. Because then it came out too late.
Too American.
Interesting.
Any more?
Any more questions? Time for one more, I think.
Hello. Barring the other guests on the panel, are there any YouTubers you'd like to work with?
I'd like to work with Logan Paul so I could arrange an accident.
I'd like to work with PewDiePie just for the money.
I've chatted to Norm, gaming historian, so I imagine he will appear in one video eventually soon. But other than obviously Larry and a few other people, obviously I reckon I discovered you guys after, not you Ashens, but I discovered you guys after I started a YouTube channel. Yeah, Norm, that would be really good. But Lazy Game Reviews is one of my biggest influences when starting my channel. So I'd love to one day work with him. And we've chatted so many times, and I'm such a last-minute person. Can you send me this audio? I need it in 3 hours' time. And yeah, he needs a lot more time than that. So it'll come, it'll come.
Serious answer. I mean, there's lots of people kind of big and small. I'm an avid YouTube watcher of like so many different things. There's quite a few people in this room like who are also doing great stuff. People like Retro Man Cave, somewhere here, back office, right in front of me, Maddie, Miss Madeleine, and all do like brilliant stuff. And I'm the sort of person that if anyone like comes to me like with an idea, I don't care. Like it's like, oh, have you got like 10,000 subs or whatever? If not, I don't care. Like if you've got a brilliant idea, then yeah, I'm up for anything really.
It's a great way to promote good channels. It's so hard to break that initial barrier, and just getting a voice in, that sort of thing, is a really cool way to break up your own episode and work with people that you respect and stuff. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, we all started with like, in the end, none of us started with like, we got like a 10,000, 1,000 subscriber head start. Everyone kind of starts from the same place, really. So it's always good, like, if you've got a big following, I feel, or like medium, decent sized following anyway, to kind of give back and, help people out and just do good stuff together. Like, just, it's kind of more friendly that way instead of, bitchy and nasty.
I think I'd like to work with Retro Man Cave because he seems to have a psychic ability to do the videos I want to do a week before. Like
Probably about the Minitel.
Yeah, that Minitel. I found a Minitel on eBay and I thought, this is amazing, it's brand new in box, I'm going to buy that. Went to click buy, gone. Next day on Twitter, look what I've got, some Minitel repeater. Bastard.
You'll have the first Falcon video though, I think, the first full length.
I don't know, I'm watching you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been wonderful getting your stories and hearing your memories. And our panel will be around in the trainer hall if you'd like to say hello, but for now, please say thank you very much for our panel. Now, you have got about an hour or so until our next talk. If you'd like to go play some games or spend some money, we will be back in about an hour from now at 2 o'clock this afternoon with the Oliver Twins.
I'm just going to say we're about to set up in the trading area if you want to come and say hello. And please buy a book before they take my funds.